Hospitalizations have been, we kind of moved away from deaths. Not as many people are dying, though there are people that are dying of COVID, be it because there's certain treatments out there or your beloved jabs. Whatever you want to attribute to that, that's your business. I don't really care, to be completely honest. But right now, nothing is in perspective. Nothing is ever talked about in context. Fear-mongering is what people do with a lot of the hospitalizations. And it's, hey, look at this person. I've seen just insane stories of, somebody was on basically their deathbed and they said they was able to get the jab. And I'm like, you expect me to believe it? It just goes to show the great lengths that people are going through or going to right now. But I think people don't seem to understand the vast amounts of data that's out there with with COVID, hospitalizations, death. From here to, and by here I mean in America, to all over the world, there is data available that almost nobody fucking looks at in context. So this is what I'm going to do for you guys real quick, just to put things into fucking perspective, because a lot of people don't seem to goddamn understand. Okay? Let's do this. What you're looking at right now is directly from covid.cdc.gov. So, YouTube overlords, we're listening to the experts that you tell us to listen to. This is where we're getting their information, okay? So there's a couple of different things I want to highlight here. First, let's just start with hospitalization rates, like an actual hospitalization rates. And what I mean by that is of people that get hospitalized for really anything, okay? How much of that is COVID related? If you watch my last segment that I did earlier in the week, I talked about context of hospitalizations in terms of the percentage of ICU beds. A lot of people have it just completely misunderstood because they've been led to believe this, because again, context is almost ignored, that most of the hospitalizations that are happening in this country are attributed to COVID. That couldn't be anything further from the fucking truth. We covered like Ohio, for example, which like 12% of their ICU bed capacity is being used for COVID. The rest that is of usage, they do have free beds, but the rest that is of usage, the vast majority of them, pretty much all around the entire country, over 50% of them have nothing to do with COVID. Okay. So we're going to look at the hospitalization rates right here. There's two different ways you can look at hospitalizations. You can look at hospitalization by just way of new admissions and hospitalizations just in general, people that are in the hospital for anything. What is the rate that is going to be COVID? We're going to look at that right here. And then there's another one that you can look in, okay, of people that are getting COVID and COVID infections, which is a very hard thing to nail down because, most people get it, don't even know that they have it. But of the ones that they know that have it, how many of those are being hospitalized? So there's two different hospitalization rates per se. The first one, as I mentioned, when you look at it like this, and this obviously is done in 7-day increments, if I'm not mistaken, how the CDC does it. So in my age group, which is a big time age group, though you are allowed to break it down, you can break it down, 18 to 49, we'll keep it there. But if you wanted to go 18 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, you could do that. The hospitalization rate for COVID, according to your own beloved CDC, for people in my age bracket, according to those parameters. So that long list of 39 or 30 or so years from 18 to 49 is 5.3. Now you may be saying, 5.3%. No, not 5.3%, 5.3 per fucking 100,000. I'll let you do the math on the percentages and the ratios of what that is. So I'm going to repeat that one more time. One more again. Again, according to your beloved CDC, hospitalizations in my age bracket, so between 18 and 49, 5.9 or 5.3, 5.3. So 5 or 6, whichever way you want to put it. In terms of the hospitalization rate, is 5 per 100,000 people. That is almost statistically insignificant. And there's other data that you can look at if you, I mean, again, you have to play kind of these math games here. Because if you look at like new hospital admissions, or you want to look at the COVID trackers, in which they're tracking all of these COVID cases and these COVID infections and versus those, you end up with, let's say, I believe it's like 1 in every 200 and in my age group, so 18 to 49, if I'm not mistaken, when I was looking at this earlier, I should have had the math on deck, but it's like 1 in every 280 or something like that, 290. Those are all COVID infections. So you're still looking in the point O's in terms of the percentage of you being hospitalized if you're in the age bracket and you have COVID. So whether you look at it in overall hospitalizations or you look at it in terms of infection, COVID infections, and of those COVID infections, who's being hospitalized, you're talking about point O's, bro. Percentages. Point fucking O's. Now, that may be surprising to a lot of you. And this is, again, you do not have to take my word for anything. Right now, I am looking at the COVID data tracker from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. You can go to this healthcare settings tab and you can click on the COVID net hospitalization surveillance network. And this is what they are saying. So of all hospitalizations, you're talking about per 100,000 when it comes to our age group, 18 to 49. So my people that are in my age group, it is fucking 5.3 per 100,000. Even at its peak, if you look at like very early in the year, in the winter, even at its peak for our age demographic was 9.6 per 100,000. Again, you're not talking about 9%. That's not 9%. That's 9 people per 100,000. That was at the fucking peak. That's not right now. A lot of y'all, it hurts and it pains you to, definitely when you've been led to believe one thing, that you haven't fell for a sham. But some of y'all need to come to terms with this, that, yeah, a lot of it has been a sham. And the sham part of it is the vast overreaction, overstatement of the impact of this. Now, I've been talking about this since the beginning of the pandemic because I was seeing the numbers come in from like South Korea. So I knew what this was. And by the way, if you want to get even more so into like the data and what it looks like, you look at some of these underlying medical issues. So you're talking about 60% having high blood pressure, hypertension. You're talking obesity in the range, and this is for adults, of course, 50% of them being overweight. Like, yet we have tried to apply this one size fit all. And there are still people who think that their anecdotal evidence, which is, oh, I knew this. I knew somebody's uncle who had a daughter that had a son that was 20 and they got really, really sick. Like, that doesn't change the data, right? That's anecdotal at best, and that's an outlier. For a lot of us, it's simply not deadly. That's just the reality. Like most people, not even most people that get this virus will never see the hospital and will never die. That's not my opinion. Like, we're not talking about opinions right now. We're talking about what the data says. It's not my opinion. That's according to the CDC. Infective fatality rate is in the point O's for a lot of our age demographic. And of course, you know your health situation. It's going to fluctuate higher and lower depending on if you're healthy, if you're do you have any underlying issues. Of course, it's going to fluctuate based on that, but still, the data is the data. It's a vast overstatement. But if more people actually bothered to look into it themselves, remember when I was covering the New York data as that was coming out early in the pandemic, if you just do it for yourself, you'll see this for what it is. But if all you do is listening to some sobbing nurse on TikTok or some public health official who went on some mainstream website or excuse me, media, CNN or something like the Faucis of the world. Yeah, they've done a great job in hyping this up. You look on YouTube, right? And, you know, they have COVID news on YouTube, and there's some NBC's covering some sob story of, unvaccinated man who's fucking 300 pounds, 5'8", is having second thoughts because he's in the hospital on a ventilator or something, and you know, he has COVID. Now, like, you see all of those stories. But if you take a step back and get away from the emotionalism that so many people are trying to play, because, well, they have a lot to gain from it. I do believe that there are cocky ass people that are within the medical industry that love the hype that they're getting from this, the attention that they're getting from this. And also, it's corrupt. You know, the medical industry is not like absent of corruption. The pharmaceutical industry is not absent of corruption, because they see as long as they can kick this can down the road, they benefit the most from it. And so people have their own individual approaches to why they want to kick that can down the road. But I would encourage you, no matter how you feel about vaccines, masks, or anything like that, stop just this whole trust the experts thing, which doesn't mean anything, by the way, because experts disagree with each other all the time. It's just an appeal to authority. But when data is readily available to you, you're not, well, I don't want to say you're not stupid, because some of you are, I'm sorry. So some of you are stupid, but I at least think there's a bulk of you that have some sort of, you can connect dots and be rational about this, right? You don't have to be a doctor or have to be an expert to understand that. You can read data. And if you read the data, that reaction doesn't match up. The overstatement does not match up with how this country and other countries are handling this virus and are spreading doom and gloom. It's simply not like that. I've never told you what to personally do from a vaccine. If that's what you want to do, I may think you're dumb for wanting to wear face diapers wherever you go, but that's your business. That's your right. Don't force me. That's where we have problems. Nonetheless, the data is what the data is. So if you learn nothing else from this video in terms of what I just taught a lot of y'all about hospitalizations, because a lot of you didn't know what I just said, look the data up for your fucking self and draw a conclusion from there. And you'd be surprised if, instead of just listening to what other people are rattling off or what's the acceptable narrative, just look into it just a little bit in more detail and think for yourself. And you'd be surprised what you be able to discover. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.